In last week's video we discussed whether it was worth upgrading your camera for megapixels alone. We took a look at the Fuji X-T3's 26 megapixel sensor and we pitched that against the Fuji X-H2's 40 megapixel sensor. We took a look at those images in Adobe Lightroom and compared to see if there was much difference in terms of detail and image quality. So a lot of people commented in that video and suggested they would like to see the same test but done in Capture One instead, because Capture One renders details perhaps a little better than Adobe Lightroom does. So that's exactly what we're going to do today. We're going to take a look at the same images but in Capture One. I'm also going to take a couple of other test images as well with different lenses and compare those in Capture One as well to see if perhaps my results in last week's video weren't correct, or maybe they'll be different. So let's go and take a look at this location I'm going to be shooting as well during this video, which is just down the end of this cliff path. Oh, I've never been around this side before, so hopefully we can get around. I've got no idea, the path seems to be running out, but hopefully if I keep going we'll be alright. So this is plan B. I couldn't actually get to the spot I wanted to go to shoot sunset tonight, so I've come to a rather nice second best, as to be said. I couldn't get down the path there, it was too close to the edge, and we've had so much rain recently that, you know, these cliff paths can be quite treacherous this time of year. Big chunks fall away on a regular basis. So I've come here, this is a great location, really is. I've not shot from this particular spot, so I'm super excited. The sun's perfectly placed in the frame, or it will be in about 20 minutes. So while I'm setting this shot up, let's go back and take a look at the comparisons, then we'll head back here, because I think it's going to be a cracking sunset this evening. So strap in folks, and I urge you to watch this video until the end because there's some very interesting results here in Capture One. Now just to let you know, had the camera locked down on the tripod, had the 2-second timer turned on, had the electronic front curtain enabled, and I manually focused in the same spot in every image just to make the images comparable, just so you know. So first up, let's look at this image captured on the wonderful Viltrox 13mm f1.4. The first thing I noticed was that Capture One applies more default sharpening to the XH2 files than the X-T3, which is in line with my conclusion when I viewed the same images in Lightroom last week. The XH2 files do require more sharpening than the X-T3 files. Capture One's default sharpening for the X-T3 is 140 and 160 for the XH2s. Here is the X-T3 at 100%. Nice details here. Here is the XH2 at 100%. Nice details here too, but perhaps not quite as sharp. Here is a side-by-side at 50%. Here is a side-by-side at 100%. I can see here that the level of detail is similar in both shots, but the X-T3 looks to have more sharpening applied, even though it's 20% less in Capture One's sharpening slider. This is the background of the same shot. I've zoomed the X-T3 shot into 67% and the XH2 to 50%. This makes the comparisons a similar size. I feel the X-T3 image looks as good, if not slightly better than the XH2, even though it's zoomed in more, which is very surprising. This is the telephoto shot, which was taken on the 5140 lens. Both images look very similar in all of these comparisons. Here it is at 50%, here it is at 100%. A fair amount of people in last week's video asked if I could do a more controlled comparison, because when I was out in location, maybe a few things could, influence the final outcome of the images, such as the soft sand, maybe there's some wind or even user error, So there are some variables there for sure. So I set up a very controlled comparison in my back garden with very even lighting conditions, shooting in the shade, tripods on concrete, and I was focused at a stone wall. Same as before, everything locked down on the tripod, IBIS turned off, electronic front curtain enabled, and also manually focusing in the same spot in every image. So let's take a look at these controlled comparisons. For the first one, I'm testing the 18 to 55mm kit lens at the long end of the focal range. The focal length might vary slightly, as it's really difficult to keep the focal length exact when changing cameras, but there's nothing too drastic. Here's a side-by-side comparisons with the X-T3 on the left and the XH2 on the right. Here we are at 50% in the centre. Here we are at 67%. Here we are at 100%. I think it's fair to say
They look fairly comparable at 67%, but to me the X-T3 file looks slightly better at 100%. Here is the image at 100% in the top right hand corner of the frame. I think it's fair to say that the XH2 image looks a little softer, even with Capture One's increase of 20% sharpness. Next I did the same test but with the red badge 50-140 f2.8 lens at the wide end at approximately 52mm. At 100% I see wonderful detail in the XH2 file, and I think it beats the X-T3 this time. Surprisingly, the X-T3 seems to perform slightly better in the corners. Next I compared the 18-55mm kit lens with a 50-140 red badge at the same focal length on the XH2. Side by side at normal viewing distance there's little difference. At 50% both look nice, but the 50-140 resolves the detail better. At 50% in the corner the 50-140 is much better, and I had comparable results when I swapped to the X-T3. A lot of people mentioned in last week's video that you really wouldn't be able to tell the difference between a 26 megapixel image and a 40 megapixel image when viewing it on the screen. You would only be able to see that difference in print, and I do agree with that to a certain extent, but the difference isn't as much as perhaps some might think. Let's take a look at the difference in sizes of these two files. If you were to look at the actual print size of the X-T3 at 300 dpi, you would get a print size of 20.8 inches times 13.86 inches. With the XH2 you're looking at a 25.76 inches by 17.7 inches. So for those of you that are not great at judging distances or measurements, the width of this is how much wider the XH2's print would be, and the height of this is how much higher or taller the XH2's print would be, without losing any resolution, without any upscaling. This this cutting board here, is about the size you're going to get from an XH2's file without upscaling. So yeah, not a huge difference in print size. A lot of people mentioned also that you only really notice the difference on screen when you crop into an image. This might be especially good for wildlife photographers. You know, you can really crop into your image if you need to. So let's have a look at the differences when you crop into an image. Here is both images at 54mm on the 50-140 f2.8. I've cropped both images so the ears and feet of Tramp are just touching the edge of the frame. Here's the cropped images side by side. There's no difference in my eyes. Here is the side by side at 100%. Obviously the XH2 is appearing larger in the frame, but I'm not seeing a huge amount more detail. Here it is at 200%. If you look at the highlight in the left eye of the right hand side image, which is the XH2, you can just about see a little more detail. There is also a touch more detail in the stitching above the right eye, but I have really had to search for this. The images are so close in the amount of detail rendered. Both are stunning, by the way. I think it's fair to say that both sensors look fantastic in Capture One, they really do. But I don't think there's a huge amount of difference in terms of details and resolution between the two sensors. What I would say though is if you zoom into 100%, you generally see a lot more flaws, and I think it's better to actually only zoom into 67%, because at 67% the image quality looks absolutely beautiful, and I don't really see a need to go in any further than that, even if you're doing some fine detail cloning or dodging and burning. But that's just my opinion.
Now let's head back to the coast.
So compositionally I think this works really well, considering it was a plan B. We've got this succession of cliff faces leading down towards the coastal town of Tenby with its iconic beachfront and its wonderful spire which juts up out of the landscape there. Very iconic, beautiful painted houses. I don't think we're going to see much of the different colours there, but I think it makes a really nice backdrop to this wonderful cove. We've got some big swells coming in too, probably some around the 6 feet mark, which is yeah, pretty good. And we've got some wonderful detail in the sky. Now, I've just taken an image just as the sun was passing by the edge of the cliff there. The light was streaming through, but I'm now waiting for the sky to light up with some beautiful colours, because I think that could happen this evening. If you're interested in my thoughts on the 13mm Viltrox 1.4, take a look at this video over here where I share my thoughts and go out and shoot some seascapes. If you enjoyed this content, please consider sharing it if you think others might like it, and also hit the thumbs up as well, because that really helps kickstart the YouTube algorithm. Anyway, until next week, take care and I'll see you soon.